and it is our April meeting, and a good meeting it will be. And it's on food, sort of the beginning of food. We're talking morels, and we'll be talking about cooking. So I thought I wanted to share with you some of the stuff that's going on in the eating fungus world. On the left, I was walking through Whole Foods. This is Whole Foods now. And this was the sign out front. And notice it says spicy chicken fungi. And it's by Plant, P-L-N-T. So the world of upscale quackery dinery has taken over the fungal world, and they're trying to turn it into fast food. And that's what this thing is. I think it's junk food on a bun. It's got pleurotus, it's got oyster mushrooms in it, but other than that, it has no recognizable content that anyone would probably want to eat. But anyway, we're being compromised. In the center is something a little more honest, if you've ever heard of this, is called corn, which, by the way, is a name of a town in Leicester, England, where this is made. It's mycoprotein made from a soil fungus. And you can see in the circle in the upper right, it's 86% mycoprotein. I eat it about once a week. It's sort of like chicken of the woods. It's a very mixable. It's got the same texture and color. Unfortunately, they chose the name corn. I think anything with a Q in front of it is likely to be subject to a good deal of scrutiny these days because of the way that's followed through in the last year or so. So, and on the right is just that's the contents of it. So it's mostly protein with egg whites as binder. So you might try. We'll talk about other real edible foods. Oh, by the way, the Mushroom Institute is protesting against Quorum calling itself mushrooms because it isn't. And they said it's not a mushroom, it's fungus. Well, that's true. We know that. So here's our board. As I mentioned, you can at many times you can contact any board member by just typing in their name and then MAWDC.org, or info goes to me. I'm pretty good about answering. So you'll hear from our 4-H here tonight, which is Mitch Fournier. I was looking, I didn't see him on there. And also our moderating First Vice President Elizabeth Hargrave will be on. And here's the program that we have scheduled. Obviously, we have programs every month, and we're working about 5 to 6 months in advance. So you can see the cookbook is tonight, of course, along with morel. And there's nothing about morels but eating. So finding them is one thing, but eating them is another. The zombie ant apocalypse is a not to be missed episode next month. And then we go into something a little more technical, the physics of spore dispersal by Dr. Ann Pringle, who's from, I believe, Harvard. She's the one who was doing the work on the Amanita phalloides. So she's quite interesting. They all are, but she's especially interesting. And finally, mushrooms in Mexico. So meeting notes. Obviously, 4As have started if you followed your mail, and we're suffering with all kinds of issues. Numbers of people, we're limiting to 10 right now. We're getting up to 50 to 60. We're doing our best. Mitch is trying to find alternative leaders. There is a 4A this weekend. It's already oversubscribed, but he's struggling, and I get a lot of the responses. So we're doing the best we can to make this work. And this is just morels for the moment. We'll go into more 4As in earnest as the year progresses. We are going to have a photography contest this year. That is a planned event, as we've mentioned before. So if you are collecting, it's a good time to take pictures so that you can be ready. We will be holding Sequanota this year. We 90-some% sure, nothing is sure, obviously. That's 10 to 12 September, so put that on your calendar. And while we're talking about calendars, the North American Mycological Association will be having their annual 4A in Colorado between 12 and 14 August. The details of that are on their NAMA website, or you can contact Bruce Boyer, who is our NAMA representative, and he is at nama@mawdc.org if you want to email him directly and question that. The Spore report came out this week. I hope you saw it. It's got some pretty good, and my compliments to our Spore 4 editor, Andy Green, who did a wonderful job. Book reviews, fungi in focus, recipes, and even an article on Adidas making shoe leather out of mycelium, which is one, you can't miss that, I'm sure. We have a board meeting coming up this month. So if you have anything you'd like us to talk about or that we haven't, bring it up and you send it to info@MAWDC, that's to me. And if anybody wants to participate in the board meeting, you can. We invite membership to do that. And finally, we have the City Nature Challenge coming up at the end of this month. And we did an iNaturalist training on 16 March. And so this is the City Nature Challenge that's coming up. There's the dates, observation period. We don't care about foxes and eagles, but we do care about mushrooms, of course. And now that you know how to do, well, we care about them, but more fungi is better as far as we're concerned. And the iNaturalist, we have our own, as you know, Malt Site, and here it is. So we've got the most observations, the most species, and the most observed, of course, turkey tail, not surprisingly, and false turkey tail, and everything that's out there now, including the violet-tooth polypore, are all over there. So if you haven't checked that out, you can. And Mitch will talk about that somewhat later. So fungi in the news, 4 items. Truffles, which we're talking about now having a truffle event in September. The question is why they smell and taste so unusual. And so this was a study that was done. It's in Science magazine, seeing whether I've got hints of garlic, potato. Nobody can agree on what hints of are, including popcorn. You'll notice. I'm not sure I would agree with that, but what are the factors? So they looked at microbiome, soil, climate, and season, and maturity. How old? As it turns out, microbiome was the most associated. In other words, what went into them at the very microscopic level. And the second most effective thing was where they came from, or terroir is what they call it for wine. So truffles also have terroir, in other words, territory. You may have seen in the paper the mushroom art that's founded in Crystal City. 10 large brightly colored mushrooms brought to you by National Landing Business. And by the way, this is the Amazon Center, which they named National Landing, and nobody even knew what it was called until they named it. And it was called the Shrooms, again, sort of it's by the Australian light and design studio, Amigo and Amigo, which is an oxymoron if ever I heard one. But anyway, it's down now. Hopefully you didn't miss it. The third item is we've been following psychedelics for a while. This is again a study in Science, reported in Science, where they gave 246 people either a placebo or microdosing. If you're not heard of that, that's 10% of any dose that you would have any effect. And they didn't tell them what they took, but they told the people to report what they thought they took. If you think about that for a minute, and the people who thought they took, even though there wasn't the ones who took the real psychedelics, felt better about it, which tells you that a lot of it's all in your brain, which we kind of already knew anyway. But more on that next month. And finally, World Mushroom Production. Fungi magazine has a really interesting article on world mushroom production, and it's in this midwinter issue. We've had a 30-fold increase. Again, this is edible mushrooms, which is why I put it in here, from 1978 to 2013, up to 4.7 kilograms per person per year. That's 10 pounds. And here's the world production breakdown. And I was surprised. Agaricus, which is the button mushroom, is only 15%. The others are kind of interesting. Shiitake on the right, 22, is the leader. And even auricularia, the tree ear, and oyster mushrooms at the bottom. So this is taken right from that magazine. So lastly, I always try and throw in a cartoon to keep it light. And this has something to do sort of with edibility. This is Sherman's Lagoon with a, I say belated Valentine. So it's quoting in there, how to find relationships, how to help them grow, and how to cultivate them. And then the answer is, it sounds like a seminar on growing mushrooms and how to tell if they're poisonous. So hopefully we'll hear more about that because it is about relationships. So tonight's program is going to consist of a panel discussion with Mitch on morels by Mitch Foray, who's our 4A chair, hopefully Tim Guijo, if he's checked in yet, we weren't sure, and moderated by Elizabeth Hargrave. And I believe we're going to start with a program, short program by Mitch, and then we're going to go to Mushroom Table, things that have been found, and finally our program by Eugenia Bone, fantastic fungi cookbook.